She believed he'd changed. Until the billionaire CEO invited her to his wedding as a friend. Emily waited until the reception was loud enough to hide the sound of her leaving. She slipped out the side door, the night air cutting through the perfume and champagne. Inside, the band played something soft. Outside, her world stilled. Noah found her halfway to her car. His tie was gone, his voice low. "You came." She didn't look at him. "You asked." He stepped closer, his expensive cologne mingling with the scent of champagne. "Emily, please, you have to understand. This marriage, it's not what you think." "Then what is it, Noah?" Emily finally turned to face him, moonlight illuminating the tears she refused to shed. "It's business. A merger. Alexandra's father wouldn't sign unless you married his daughter," Emily finished, her voice hollow. "So you're selling yourself for a business deal." Noah's face contorted with pain. "I'm trapped by promises made to shareholders and families who measure love in profit. My father's legacy, thousands of jobs, they all depend on this." His words were desperate, but his ring gleamed under the parking lot lights. Emily finally met his eyes. "You don't get to call it love if it only exists in secret. Have you ever had someone return to your life claiming they've changed, only to discover some truths never do?" Today's story explores what happens when a woman confronts the man who once promised her forever, only to find him offering her friendship at his wedding to someone else. I'm Mr. Harrison, and if you've ever had to choose between what your heart wants and what your dignity demands, this story will resonate deep in your soul. Give this video a like if you've ever had to walk away from someone who couldn't fully choose you. Emily Carter never thought she'd hear from Noah Pierce again. The billionaire CEO who once promised her forever, then left her with nothing but unanswered questions. For 3 years, she'd rebuilt her life piece by painful piece, transforming her heartbreak into a successful design career and a life she could be proud of. She'd almost convinced herself she was over him. Almost. The memories still ambushed her sometimes. In the quiet moments between client meetings, she'd remember how his eyes crinkled when he laughed. While sketching new designs late at night, she'd recall how he used to bring her coffee just the way she liked it. 1 sugar, splash of almond milk, without being asked. And occasionally, when rain tapped against her bedroom window, she'd think of that stormy night when he'd first whispered, "forever," against her skin. His promises as warm and encompassing as the sheets tangled around them. But Emily had learned to push those memories away, to focus instead on the 387 unanswered calls she'd made after he disappeared. The emails that went unread. The text messages that showed as delivered but never received a response. The way she'd driven to his penthouse in the pouring rain, mascara streaming down her face, only to be told by the doorman that Mr. Pierce had left instructions not to be disturbed by anyone, especially her. She'd built walls around her heart brick by painful brick, reinforcing them with every achievement in her now thriving design business. Each successful project, each satisfied client, each magazine feature became another layer of protection against the vulnerability Noah had exploited and abandoned. Emily 2.0 was stronger, wiser, and far too smart to ever trust a man who had shown her exactly who he was. Someone who could walk away without a backward glance when things got difficult. Then one ordinary Tuesday, he reappeared in her life. Soft-spoken, regretful, claiming he'd changed. The phone had rung while she was reviewing fabric swatches for a new client's office renovation. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but a project deadline had her expecting calls from several vendors. Emily Carter Design. This is Emily. The silence on the other end lasted just long enough for her to pull the phone away, checking if the call had dropped. Then, M. Just 1 syllable. Her nickname in that voice, and suddenly she was 27 again, breathless and in love and believing in impossible things. "I've thought about you every day," Noah had said during that first unexpected phone call, his voice achingly familiar even after all this time. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I needed to hear your voice." Emily had gripped her phone so tightly her knuckles turned white, fabric swatches forgotten as she sank into her office chair. 3 years, Noah. 3 years without a word. "I know," he'd whispered, the weight of regret heavy in those two simple words. And there hasn't been a single day I haven't regretted walking away. She should have hung up. Should have told him exactly where he could shove his belated regrets. Should have protected the life she'd so carefully reconstructed from his devastating absence. But something in his voice, a vulnerability she'd never heard from the always confident CEO, kept her on the line. "Why now?" she'd asked, hating how her voice trembled. "Why reach out after all this time?" "Because I finally found the courage," he'd answered. "Because pretending you weren't the best thing that ever happened to me has been slowly killing me. Because I've changed, I've changed, and I needed you to know." Despite every rational thought screaming at her to hang up, Emily found herself talking to him. One call became 2, then 3. Late-night conversations that stretched until dawn, just like before. Laughter that felt like coming home. The dangerous feeling that maybe, just maybe, this time was different. "Tell me about your life now," Noah would ask, his voice intimate in the darkness of her bedroom. And Emily would share stories about her design firm's latest projects, about the apartment she'd bought last year, about the stray cat she'd been feeding on her balcony. Noah would listen, asking questions that showed he was truly paying attention, laughing at all the right moments. It was dangerously easy, slipping back into conversation with him. Like muscle memory, her body remembering a dance it had performed countless times before. "I've missed this," he admitted one night, the confession floating between them in the darkness. "I've missed you." And for a moment Emily believed him. Believed that people could change, that second chances were possible, that the man who had shattered her heart might be worthy of trusting again. That this time, when he said forever, he might actually mean it. Then the invitation arrived. Heavy cream cardstock with gold embossing that caught the afternoon light streaming through her apartment windows. Her name written in a handwriting she would recognize anywhere. Noah Pierce was getting married. And somehow, impossibly, he wanted her there. As a friend. The handwritten note tucked inside read. 2 words that felt like a knife between her ribs. Emily sank onto her couch, the invitation falling to her lap as memories crashed through the walls she'd built to contain them. The way Noah's eyes crinkled when he laughed. How his voice softened when he spoke about the future. Their future, with such certainty that she'd believed him. Noah Pierce, the man who'd promised her forever, then disappeared without explanation, leaving nothing but unanswered calls and the hollow echo of promises that never materialized. And now he was marrying someone else. Emily placed the invitation on her coffee table and walked to the window, pressing her forehead against the cool glass. 3 floors below, the city moved in its relentless rhythm, oblivious to how her world had just tilted on its axis. Why would he reach out now? Why invite her to witness him pledging himself to someone else? Her phone buzzed with a text from her best friend. "Mia, still on for dinner tonight?" Emily stared at the message, then at the invitation. She needed perspective before she drowned in the undertow of the past. "Absolutely," she replied. "And bring wine. Lots of it." The small Italian restaurant was busy, the ambient noise providing a sense of privacy as Emily slid the invitation across the table to Mia. "He wants you to attend his wedding?" Mia's voice rose in disbelief, drawing glances from nearby tables. "After everything? That's not just audacious, it's cruel." Emily twisted her pasta around her fork, appetite gone. Maybe he's trying to make amends, show there are no hard feelings. Or maybe he wants to parade his shiny new life in front of you. Mia refilled Emily's wine glass. "You don't owe him closure, Em. You don't owe him anything." "I know," Emily sighed, setting down her fork. "But part of me wants to go. To see him one last time and prove to myself that I'm really over him." Mia's expression softened. "Are you? Over him?" The question hung between them, heavier than it should have been after 3 years. Emily thought of the months after Noah disappeared. How she checked her phone obsessively, jumped at every ring, crafted countless messages she never sent. How even now, she sometimes caught herself wondering what he would think of her latest design project or if he still took his coffee with 2 sugars. "I thought I was," she admitted quietly. Until that invitation arrived. Mia reached across the table, squeezing Emily's hand. Then maybe you need this. One last chapter to finally close the book. Emily nodded, decision crystallizing. She would go not for Noah but for herself. To face the ghost that had haunted the corners of her life for too long. To watch him marry someone else and finally accept that whatever they'd had was truly over. What she didn't expect was the text that lit up her phone later that night as she was getting ready for bed. It's Noah. I heard you received the invitation. Can we talk? Her heart stuttered as she stared at the screen, at the number she'd deleted but never forgotten. 3 years of silence, and now he wanted to talk. She sat on the edge of her bed, thumbs hovering over the keyboard, deleting and retyping her response 3 times before settling on. I'll be there. Simple. Non-committal. Not revealing how her pulse raced at the sight of his name, or how her mind flooded with questions she'd long since given up hope of having answered. His reply came seconds later. Thank you, Em. The nickname, so casual, so intimate, sent a jolt through her. Only Noah had ever called her that, and hearing it again, even in text, felt like stepping back in time. Emily set her phone down and stared at the ceiling, wondering what she'd just agreed to, and why, after everything, her first instinct was still to say yes to Noah Pierce. The coffee shop was neutral territory. Busy enough to feel safe, quiet enough for conversation. Emily arrived 15 minutes early, choosing a corner table with her back to the wall. She ordered a latte she didn't want and watched the door, her stomach knotting tighter with each passing minute. When Noah walked in, the years fell away in an instant. He was still devastatingly handsome, tall and broad-shouldered in a charcoal suit that spoke of quiet wealth. His dark hair was shorter now, with threads of silver at the temples that somehow made him more striking. But it was his eyes that caught her. Those same intense blue eyes that had once looked at her like she was the answer to questions he hadn't even known to ask. He spotted her immediately, as if some invisible thread still connected them across time and space and heartbreak. For a moment, he just stood there, and Emily saw something flicker across his face. Relief? Regret? Then he was moving toward her, and she was forcing herself to breathe normally. Emily. Her name on his lips sounded like both a greeting and an apology. Noah. She was proud of how steady her voice remained. He hesitated, then sat across from her, close enough that she caught the familiar scent of his cologne. Thank you for meeting me. I wasn't sure you would. Neither was I, she admitted, wrapping her hands around her cooling latte. Why did you invite me, Noah? To your wedding, of all things. He looked down at his hands. Strong hands she once knew as well as her own. Then back at her. Because ending things the way I did was the biggest mistake of my life. And I hoped seeing you again might give us both some closure. Closure. Emily repeated the word, tasting its bitterness. 3 years without a word. And now you want closure at your wedding? If you've ever been blindsided by someone from your past, hit that like button and subscribe to Timeless Love Tales with Mr. Harrison. The most painful part of Emily's journey is still to come, and you won't want to miss what happens when she discovers the truth behind Noah's sudden reappearance in her life. I know how it sounds. Noah ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar it made Emily's chest ache. After everything fell apart with the company, with my father's health, I wasn't in a good place, Em. I thought I was protecting you by staying away. Protecting me? The hurt she'd buried surfaced like a tidal wave. You disappeared, Noah. No explanation, no goodbye. Just silence. Do you have any idea what that did to me? His face creased with pain. I do. Or at least I think I do now. At the time, I convinced myself you'd be better off without me and my mess. The company was on the verge of bankruptcy. My father was dying, and the board was threatening to oust me if I didn't secure the merger with Westfield Industries. So you just cut me out? Like I was nothing. Emily's voice cracked despite her best efforts. You were everything, Noah said quietly. That was the problem. I couldn't be who you needed me to be and save everything my father had built. I had to choose. Emily felt the old wound reopen, bleeding fresh pain. You didn't give me a choice. You didn't even give me the dignity of a conversation. I know. His voice was heavy with regret. By the time I realized what I'd done, how badly I'd handled everything, months had passed. I thought you'd hate me, that it was too late. It was, Emily said, meeting his gaze directly. It is. Noah nodded slowly, accepting her words even as something like hope lingered in his eyes. I understand, but I still want you there, Emily. Not to hurt you or to prove anything. Just because you were the most important person in my life for a long time. And some part of me can't imagine taking this step without you knowing. The sincerity in his voice made her defenses waver. This was the Noah she remembered. Thoughtful, vulnerable, capable of admitting his mistakes. For a moment, she could almost understand his twisted logic, the impossible choice he thought he'd faced. Tell me about her, Emily said finally. Your fiancée. Something complicated passed across Noah's face. Alexandra. She's brilliant. The daughter of Westfield's CEO. We've known each other for years through business circles. Emily noted what he didn't say. That he loved Alexandra. That she made him happy. That he couldn't wait to spend his life with her. The omission hung between them, unacknowledged but unmistakable. A strategic match, she observed, unable to keep the edge from her voice. Noah's gaze dropped. It's more complicated than that. It always is with you. Emily gathered her purse, suddenly needing to escape before she said something she couldn't take back. I should go. Emily, wait. Noah reached across the table, stopping just short of touching her hand. Will you come? To the wedding. She looked at him, really looked at him, searching for the man she'd once loved beyond reason. He was still there, beneath the weight of responsibilities and compromises and years. And that, perhaps, was the most painful realization of all. I'll think about it, she said finally, rising from her chair. Noah stood too, towering over her in a way that once made her feel protected but now just emphasized the distance between them. Can I call you? Just to talk sometimes. The request was so unexpected, so reminiscent of how they'd begun. Late-night calls that stretched into early morning, that Emily found herself nodding before she could think better of it. Goodbye, Noah, she said, turning to leave before he could see the confusion in her eyes. Goodbye, he replied softly, the nickname following her out the door like a ghost. The first call came 3 days later, just as Emily was settling into bed with a book she couldn't focus on. Her phone lit up with Noah's name, and despite every rational thought screaming at her to ignore it, she answered. It's late, she said by way of greeting. I know. His voice was low, intimate in the darkness of her bedroom. I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about seeing you again. Emily closed her eyes, fighting the familiar pull of his voice. Noah, just talk to me, about anything. Your work, your life. I've missed this, you. And somehow, despite her better judgment, she found herself talking. About her design firm's recent projects, about the apartment she'd bought last year, about the stray cat she'd been feeding on her balcony. Noah listened, asking questions that showed he was truly paying attention, laughing at all the right moments. It was dangerously easy, slipping back into conversation with him. Like muscle memory, her body remembering a dance it had performed countless times before. That first call lasted 2 hours. The second, which came 2 nights later, stretched until dawn, both of them speaking in hushed tones as if sharing secrets, though they carefully avoided any mention of their past or his upcoming wedding. By the third call, Emily knew she was playing with fire. By the fifth, she'd stopped pretending she could resist the warmth. Remember that weekend in the mountains? Noah asked one night 3 weeks after their coffee shop meeting. When it snowed unexpectedly and we got stranded, Emily smiled into the darkness. The cabin with the leaky roof and no firewood. And you were so mad at me for not checking the weather forecast. We had to huddle under every blanket we could find, she recalled, the memory vivid despite the years. And you told me stories all night to distract me from the cold. Noah's chuckle was warm through the phone. Best weekend of my life, despite everything. The admission hung between them, too honest for the boundaries they'd silently established. Emily felt her heart constrict. Noah, she said softly, What are we doing? The silence stretched, filled with all the things they weren't saying. I don't know, he finally admitted. I just know that talking to you again feels like coming home. Emily closed her eyes against the surge of emotion his words evoked. You're getting married in 2 weeks. I know. His voice was strained. To someone else. I know that too. Emily sat up in bed, suddenly needing to be fully awake for this conversation. Then why are you calling me every night? Why are we talking like nothing's changed when everything has? Because I made a mistake, Em. The raw honesty in his voice made her breath catch. Walking away from you was the biggest mistake of my life, and I don't know how to fix it. I don't know if I can fix it. You can't, she said, even as her heart rebelled against her words. You're engaged. You made your choice. It's not that simple. Noah sounded frustrated now. The merger, my father's legacy, thousands of jobs. Everything depends on this marriage. It's not just about what I want. It never is with you. Emily felt tears threatening and blinked them back fiercely. That's always been our problem, hasn't it? Everything else comes first. The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken truths. Will you still come? He finally asked, voice barely above a whisper. To the wedding? Emily should have said no. Should have ended this dangerous game they were playing before someone, likely her, got hurt even worse than before. Instead, she heard herself say, yes, I'll be there. After they hung up, Emily lay awake until morning, wondering if she'd just made the second biggest mistake of her life. If you know what it's like to be pulled back into someone's orbit just when you thought you were free, hit that like button. And if you've ever had to choose between what your heart wants and what your self-respect demands, leave a comment below. I read every single one. The Pierce Westfield wedding was the social event of the season, held at the historic Thornfield estate overlooking the city. Emily arrived alone, wearing a deep blue dress that made her feel armored somehow, protected against whatever pain this day might bring. The ceremony was set in the estate's rose garden. White chairs arranged in perfect rows, an elaborate floral arch framing the spot where Noah would soon pledge himself to another woman. Emily chose a seat near the back, hoping to remain as inconspicuous as possible. She watched guests arrive, business associates, society figures, people whose faces she recognized from magazines and news reports. No one she actually knew. She felt like an intruder, a ghost from a past Noah had carefully excised from this new chapter of his life. Emily Carter? A woman's voice startled her from her thoughts. I didn't expect to see you here. Emily turned to find Vanessa Harlow, Noah's executive assistant, regarding her with undisguised curiosity. Noah invited me, she said simply. Did he? Vanessa's perfectly shaped eyebrow arched. How interesting. Before Emily could respond, the music began, and everyone rose, turning toward the aisle. Emily forced herself to look, to witness this moment fully so she could finally let go. Noah stood at the altar, impossibly handsome in a black tuxedo, his expression solemn. As the bridal march played, Alexandra Westfield appeared, ethereal in white silk and lace, the perfect corporate princess about to complete the perfect merger. Emily's chest tightened as Alexandra glided down the aisle, but it was Noah who captured her attention. His eyes were scanning the crowd, moving past his bride to search the sea of faces until their gazes locked. For one breathless moment, the years between them vanished. Emily saw recognition, regret, and something else flash across Noah's face, something that looked dangerously like longing. Then Alexandra reached the altar, and Noah turned to her, his mask of composure slipping back into place. The ceremony proceeded like a beautifully choreographed performance. Emily sat rigid in her chair, hands clasped so tightly her knuckles whitened, as the officiant spoke of love and commitment and forever. When the time came for vows, Alexandra's voice rang clear and confident across the garden. Noah, I promise to be your partner in all things, to support your vision and stand by your side as we build our future together. Our families have always known we were destined for this moment, and I enter this union with clear eyes and full commitment to all it represents. Business language, Emily thought, not love language. But when Noah began to speak, his voice faltered. Just for a moment, a hesitation so brief most guests probably didn't notice. But Emily did. "Alexandra," he began, then paused, swallowing visibly. "I promise to honor our commitment, to respect the trust our families have placed in us, to build something lasting from the foundation we've been given." Not a single mention of love. Not one word about passion or joy or even affection. And when his eyes flickered toward Emily again, just for a heartbeat, she knew with sudden, devastating clarity that he still loved her. The realization didn't bring triumph or vindication. Only a bone-deep sadness for what might have been, for the choices that had led them here, for the future that would never be theirs. "I now pronounce you husband and wife." Emily didn't join the receiving line. Couldn't bear to shake Noah's hand and offer congratulations that would taste like ash in her mouth. Instead, she slipped into the reception, finding a table in the corner where she could remain unnoticed while fulfilling her promise to be present. She watched as Noah and Alexandra performed their first dance, their movements precise but lacking the natural rhythm of two bodies accustomed to each other. Saw how Noah's smile never quite reached his eyes as he made the rounds, accepting congratulations from business associates who spoke of synergy and strategic alliances rather than happiness or love. When Alexandra's father took the microphone, his toast made the true nature of the union unmistakable. "Today marks not just the joining of two people, but of two dynasties," he proclaimed, raising his champagne flute. "Pierce Technologies and Westfield Industries united at last. The merger we've all been waiting for." Polite laughter rippled through the crowd. Emily felt sick. As the evening wore on, the music grew louder, the dancing more enthusiastic as champagne flowed freely. Emily watched Noah circulate through the room, playing his role perfectly while never quite looking in her direction. She'd been a fool to come, to subject herself to this elaborate charade. She waited until the reception was loud enough to hide the sound of her leaving. She slipped out the side door, the night air cutting through the perfume and champagne. Inside, the band played something soft. Outside, her world stilled. Noah found her halfway to her car. His tie was gone, his voice low. "You came." She didn't look at him. "You asked." He stepped closer, his expensive cologne mingling with the scent of champagne. "Emily, please, you have to understand. This marriage, it's not what you think." "Then what is it, Noah?" Emily finally turned to face him, moonlight illuminating the tears she refused to shed. "It's business. A merger. Alexandra's father wouldn't sign unless you married his daughter," Emily finished, her voice hollow. "So you're selling yourself for a business deal." Noah's face contorted with pain. "I'm trapped by promises made to shareholders and families who measure love in profit. My father's legacy, thousands of jobs, they all depend on this." His words were desperate, but his ring gleamed under the parking lot lights. "And what about us?" Emily asked quietly. "What was your plan there? Late-night calls while your wife sleeps in the next room? Secret meetings whenever you can slip away from your corporate marriage?" "I don't know," Noah admitted, running a hand through his hair. "I just knew I couldn't let you go again. Not completely." Emily finally met his eyes. "You don't get to call it love if it only exists in secret." He stepped closer, close enough that she felt the warmth of him again, the pull she swore she'd never answer. For a heartbeat, it almost felt like years ago, before the betrayal, before the silence, before he'd chosen everything else over her. He whispered, her name a plea on his lips. "I never stopped loving you." The words she'd once longed to hear now felt like the cruelest of ironies. Emily took a step back, creating distance between them. "Goodbye, Noah." "Emily, wait." But she was already walking away, each step more certain than the last. Behind her, she heard him call her name once more, the sound swallowed by the music spilling from the reception. Emily slid into her car, hands steady as she started the engine. Through the rearview mirror, she could see Noah standing alone in the parking lot, the powerful CEO suddenly looking lost and small against the backdrop of his own wedding celebration. She drove away without looking back. And for the first time, Noah Pierce, billionaire, visionary, man who always wins, realized what it means to lose something money can't buy. Emily didn't cry. She just exhaled, finally free, knowing he'd spend the rest of his life regretting the one woman he couldn't keep. The next morning, Emily woke to sunlight streaming through her bedroom windows. For the first time in weeks, her first thought wasn't of Noah. Instead, she felt a curious lightness, as if she'd set down a burden she'd been carrying for years. Her phone buzzed with a text from Mia. "How are you? Do you need company today?" Emily smiled, typing back, "I'm good. Actually, I'm better than good. I'm free." And she was free from the what-ifs and maybes that had haunted her since Noah's reappearance. Free from the hope that had kept her tethered to a past that could never be reclaimed. Free to move forward without the shadow of what might have been darkening her path. Later that day, as Emily sat sketching designs for a new project, her phone lit up with Noah's name. Once, that sight would have sent her heart racing. Now, she felt only a distant sadness as she declined the call. Seconds later, a text appeared. "Emily, please. We need to talk." She stared at the message for a long moment, then typed a response she should have sent years ago. "No, Noah, we don't. I wish you well, but this is goodbye." Then she blocked his number. 3 months later, Emily was reviewing client proposals in her office when her assistant knocked on the door. "There's a delivery for you." A courier stood waiting with a large envelope. Inside was a business magazine with Noah on the cover, looking polished and professional beside Alexandra. The headline read, "Pierce Westfield Merger. Inside the power couple reshaping the industry." A yellow sticky note was attached to the cover with a handwritten message. "Thought you'd want to see this. He got what he wanted after all." Mia. Emily flipped through the article, scanning quotes about strategic vision and combined resources. Near the end, one paragraph caught her eye. When asked about the personal side of their partnership, Pierce becomes uncharacteristically reticent. "Some things aren't for public consumption," he says, a shadow crossing his usually confident expression. Alexandra smoothly interjects, "What Noah means is that we prefer to keep our focus on the business. That's always been our priority." Emily closed the magazine, feeling nothing but a distant pity for the man who had everything money could buy and nothing that truly mattered. That evening, as she walked home through the park, Emily noticed a young couple sitting on a bench, completely absorbed in each other. The woman was laughing at something her partner had said, their hands intertwined, their bodies angled toward each other as if pulled by some invisible force. Emily smiled, no longer feeling the pang of envy or regret such sights once triggered. Someday she would find that kind of love again, the real kind, with someone who would choose her first, always. Someone who understood that love wasn't a business transaction or a secret to be kept, but a choice made openly, honestly, every single day. Her phone buzzed with a text from a number she didn't recognize. "This is Noah. New number. I miss you. The merger is complete. Maybe now we could." Emily deleted the message without finishing it. Some doors were meant to stay closed. 6 months after the wedding, Emily was featured in a design magazine for her innovative work on sustainable urban spaces. The article included a photo of her standing proudly in front of her latest project, smiling with genuine happiness. The day the magazine hit newsstands, a massive arrangement of lilies, her favorite flower, arrived at her office with a card that read simply, "Congratulations, you deserve every success." And Emily gave the flowers to her assistant and threw away the card. A year to the day after Noah's wedding, Emily attended a charity gala for urban development. As she mingled with potential clients, a familiar voice behind her made her pause. "Emily Carter, I was hoping I'd see you here." She turned to find Noah, impeccable in a tuxedo, watching her with those same intense blue eyes. But this time they held no power over her. "Noah," she acknowledged with a polite nod. "Is Alexandra here as well?" A flicker of something, pain, regret, crossed his face. "No, we're taking some time apart." "I'm sorry to hear that," Emily said, and meant it. "Are you?" His voice was soft, hopeful. Emily met his gaze steadily. Yes, I wouldn't wish unhappiness on anyone, Noah. Not even you. I made the wrong choice, he said quietly. I think I knew it even then, standing at that altar. Maybe, Emily agreed, but it was still your choice. A waiter passed with champagne, and Emily took a glass, using the moment to create some distance between them. I should circulate. It was good seeing you, Noah. Emily, he called as she began to walk away. Do you ever think about us? What might have been? She paused, considering the question. I used to, all the time, but now. She smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. Now I'm too busy thinking about what will be. As she moved through the crowd, Emily felt Noah's gaze following her. But for the first time, she felt no pull to look back. Her future lay ahead, not behind, and it was brighter than any past he could offer. If you've ever had to choose yourself over someone who couldn't fully choose you, hit that like button right now. And if you know the freedom that comes from walking away from something that was never going to be enough, share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. You see, Emily's story teaches us something profound about love and self-worth. True love isn't measured in secret phone calls or stolen glances across a wedding ceremony. It's not found in what-ifs or somedays. Real love chooses you openly, honestly, and completely, not as an afterthought or a secret to be kept. Noah Pierce had everything money could buy: power, prestige, a company empire, but he lacked the courage to choose love over obligation. And in the end, he lost the one thing his wealth couldn't secure: a woman who loved him for himself, not for what he could provide. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is walk away from someone who wants to keep us in the shadows. Because we all deserve to be someone's first choice, not their secret regret. This is Mr. Harrison with Timeless Love Tales, reminding you that your worth isn't determined by someone else's ability to recognize it. If this story resonated with you, subscribe for more tales that remind us of our value and the courage it sometimes takes to honor it. Until next time, remember, real love doesn't ask you to make yourself smaller or hide in the shadows. It invites you to shine your brightest light.